you guys? Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new here. So today, guys, we're going to be talking about Caitlin and Tyler from MTV's Teen Mom, as a new episode of their podcast came out, and it was centered more around the misconceptions of the adoption, things that people have said over the years pertaining to the adoption that Kate and Tyler feel is incorrect. We're going to listen to clips of the podcast. This episode, for me, it was probably, honestly, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I like all their episodes. I've listened to every one of their episodes thus far, and I've liked all of them. To be fair, the one with Lindsay Chrisley, that was honestly just for entertainment purposes. I like the Chrisleys. I was very interested to hear Lindsay's dynamic with her parents and where it stands now and how it got to be, where it is. So that was super interesting. Their podcast with Becky, I also found that interesting because I also like Becky. It kind of confused me. I will say those two kind of confused me because I'm like, if you listen to Kale's podcast, you know exactly who they are. And I used to listen to Kale's podcast. I used to listen to Coffee Combos, but I haven't really gotten an update on like Lindsay and where she's still with her parents for a minute. So that was interesting. But I was like, it's interesting, but we do know these people. So like if you listen to Kale, to me, it was kind of weird because I'm like, anybody that's listening to Kate and Ty, they probably listen to Kale and they probably already know these two. So it's just weird, like seeing Kate and Ty interviewing Kale's friends. But I still enjoyed listening to it. But this one, in my opinion, was more interesting as far as just like listening to them respond to things about the adoption. A few weeks ago, Caitlin actually talked about this idea that everybody has that the adoption was supposed to close after 5 years. Because I see that all the time, let me see if I can bring it up. I should have found this already. Kate and Tyler's adoption. Oh, let me put this out there. We're going to be looking at a lot of stuff. This video will probably last about as long as the other one. And I will be playing several clips. But the adoption contract that we saw on the episode, I don't remember it stating that visitations would end after 5 years. I thought it stated something about a picture. I'm going to go back. We're going to read the one from, because a few years ago, Kate and Ty sat down with Dawn because Teresa was not responding to them. And it was coming up time for them to do an annual visit, and they could not get a response from Teresa. So they reached out to Dawn. They met with Dawn for lunch, and they just kind of said, like, hey, listen, like, we can't, Teresa's not responding. And Dawn presented them with this contract. And we'll look at it really quickly. This is the part of the contract. It's cut off. The only thing where I see 5 years is Tyler was requesting a photo of birthdays through the age of 5. Where's the full one? Come on now. I know I had it before. Let me see if I can pull that up. I never remember, like, even in that, I never remember it stating that visits actually ended at 5. I thought it was the picture would end, the picture of her like by herself would end at 5. And then after that, it would be, a yearly picture at her birthday, but it didn't have to be by herself. I should have, if they don't stop, they will regret this. I know Carly will be upset they make this book, but remember that Leah has friends and their. I will tell you, I've talked to somebody that has been verified that knows Brandon and Teresa Carly, and I've been told like 100% this person is verified. They have provided information that nobody else would know, and I'm being told that Carly is highly upset about this, but she's highly upset that she cannot see Kate and Tyler. Like, I've been told that she wants to see them. And she's not happy that it's been shut off. That's all I can say. I wish I could go into more detail, but maybe later on I'll be able to. I'm hoping at some point because there is discussions about people speaking out, but right now that's all I've been given permission to say. But gosh, I wish I would have found the one that we looked with Dawn because I never remember it specifically saying the visits would end at 5. I just remember it saying that specific photo of Carly by herself. That he wanted a photo of Carly every year. Tyler requested this, a photo of Carly every year on her birthday by herself up until the age of 5, and then after that, a photo a year until the age of 18. Um, American Justice says my adoption was overturned at 15 and readopted at 16. So, well, overturned at 15? Wow, an adoption can be overturned? Wow. That's interesting. So we're going to get into what's going on because, like I said, Caitlin came out a couple of weeks ago saying, that is not true. The adoption was not supposed to stop at the age of 5. We signed 2 contracts during this situation. One contract was in the beginning and one was at the end. The contract we signed at the end was after I had Carly. And that's where, that contract states that we are to have annual visits until the age of 18. Now, I've seen a lot of people. I'm going to show you guys a copy of what Tyler posted today because a lot of people have accused him of lying. They're like, I ain't seen it. Like, where's a copy of the contract? Show us. So Tyler made some posts today on his Instagram of this new contract that nobody has seen before. So let's take a look at it. All right. And I'm actually shocked at, okay, let me just read it. It says birth parents request adoptive family. Tyler and Caitlin choose an adoptive family prior to the birth of her baby. They requested a 2-parent home for the baby where the couple had a positive relationship and were committed to one another. Tyler and Caitlin have requested a semi-open adoption with the adoptive family. And then below this, it says openness preferences. Tyler and Caitlin requested that the adoptive family be present at the hospital for delivery and care of the baby as well as the discharge. Tyler and Caitlin have requested to have pictures and updates of the baby sent to them throughout the child's first 18 years. The adoptive family is committed to a semi-open adoption. The exchange of pictures and letters will take place at the adoption agency. Tyler and Caitlin have requested pictures and an update twice a year until the age of 18. Tyler and Caitlin have also requested annual visits with the child and the adoptive family in the future. So, okay, this is all blacked out. And then Tyler says, I'm here to share the truth, the unbiased, blind truth. Whether that truth creates a defensive, emotional reaction of some people or not, it doesn't change the validity of said truth. Facts are not subjective. Only opinions are. And most of the people hating on us for speaking about adoption are basing their opinions on false, limited information. I just hope that they remember these opinions that they feel so necessary to share publicly carry the potential for very damaging, hurtful accusations. So if they are truly seeking the correct information, they'll listen. But if they rather continue to feed their own opinion-based narrative that the algorithm has rewarded for them, then they won't. But I just hope they realize that by not seeking the truth, they are willfully choosing ignorance over knowledge for the sake of their own confirmatory bias. Took me a minute to run that in my head. So, okay, and I want to address this because I see a lot of people point this out. So it only has a preference and request. It does, but what that means in a contract, so like if you buy a house, right? If you're buying a house and say I'm buying a house and I request that the seller pay a percentage of the closing costs, if the seller signs that contract where I make that request, that means the seller agreed to it. I see so many people saying, well, that was just a request. Yeah, but if you request something in a contract, if it's signed, which this one was, that means those people that sign it acknowledge your request and accept that request. I was actually like going through Instagram today, and I see so many people pointing that out. That's just a request. That's just a request. That's just a request. And then I saw somebody say, like, y'all, they signed it. Yeah, like they're making their request, and that's how contracts work. Like you put in what you want to happen, and if it's signed, that means the other party acknowledges it. So that means they agreed to Caitlin and Tyler's request. Um, um, so I was kind of shocked by that, and then I wanted to talk about something else because actually let's continue. Okay, requests and preferences are not requirements, is what somebody said. And then somebody said, actually, this is an even better example of confirmatory bias. Let's break down why. People believed our adoption was only open for 5 years based off limited false information. I then provide the correct information with evidence instead of opinions. Then they dissect the new information and, and regurgitate it with their own fallacies to protect the original thesis they built in their heads about why, which was originally based on limited false information in the first place. So instead of listening to learn more, they continue to listen to prove their thesis instead. And I'm like, requests, preferences, signing a contract, you're acknowledging that you agree to their request. So I was like, what? I'm confused by this. But that's what it means. I mean, think about it yourself, right? If you ever wrote a contract, say you're going to have your roof repaired, and you put specific. My request is that you put in a tin roof. My request is that it be done by this amount of time. I request that you complete my tin roof by June of 2025. If that contractor signs that, then he is agreeing to those requests. They could have not signed it and said, we don't agree to that. We know that we don't want that. Okay. So also, let's continue going in the comments, and then I'll touch on something else. All right. Let's see. Listen to me when I say this. If your agency is telling you that your open adoption agreement is in any way binding, they are lying. Some states have agreements that are legally enforceable, but what they don't tell you is that the PACAs highly favor adoptive parents. Watching at Caitlin and Tyler over their journey and seeing their once open adoption go through a period of being closed has been heartbreaking to watch. Now, I don't know who wrote that. Somebody wrote that, and then Tyler reshared it. I can also tell you that, okay, y'all know I have sources that I talk to that, you know how like Leah has her own phone and she goes to a school where she talks to her friends, and like her friends are like, so your mom's on television, you're on TV. It's my understanding that Carly has a much more restrictive life, like possibly not a cell phone of her own. That's probably why Caitlin was texting Teresa, because Carly possibly doesn't have her phone. Also, it is my understanding that people are instructed, do not bring up Caitlin and Tyler to Carly. And two, think of it like this. Carly is a pretty good kid. She may want to reach out to her parents, but she also may have a fear of doing that. When I was 16, I love my boyfriend so much, I wanted to sneak out. But I'm not going to do it because I'm scared. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, oh my God, what if my parents found out? Like if Carly wants to reach out to Brandon and Teresa, and she may have a way to do that, she may still be too scared to do so. She may be like, oh, I want to, but like, what if they find out, and then I'm going to be in trouble, and then they're really not going to let me talk to them. You know what I'm saying? So like when I do see these comments, and I'm probably going to make a lot of people mad because I was so much like, I always feel like everybody has a right to share their life, especially if you're on a TV show. If you're on a TV show, reality TV show, share your life, talk about your life, whatever. That is your prerogative. If people want to watch, they watch. If they don't want to watch, they don't want to watch. So I've always been a big believer in people being able to talk about what they go through, their life. Now, where I had a problem with Cate and Tyler is I was like, I feel like people have that right until it impedes upon their children's their children or their child's feelings or their mental health. So I was like, if this is hurting Carly, just the small possibility, big possibility, any possibility that it is hurting Carly, upsetting Carly, then they need to stop. Maybe they can talk about the earlier days of their adoption. I know production pushes them to talk about it. I know production, anytime they are filming, they're going to ask what's going on with Carly. They're going to want to film that. It's kind of like their contract is to their contract for Teen Mom is to follow their story with Carly, just like Gary's is to follow his story with Amber and the dynamic between those. That's what production pushes. Everybody is like, just today I was reading my comments and somebody was like, I wish Gary would just never even talk about Amber anymore. And I'm like, honestly, I think we all wish that, but production would not allow that. Production, that's the story they're following. Production, the show is called Teen Mom. So they are following now 30-year-olds who used to be teen moms, and they're still following how being a teen parent impacted their life even today. So the dynamic between two parents, that the dad got custody of the child and the mom has mental health issues that's rarely there, that's what they are pushing them to talk about. So that's why Kale quit. That's why Chelsea quit. They both quit because they're like, literally all they want us to talk about is Adam. All they want us to talk about is my baby daddies. I have so much other stuff going on in my life. I don't want to talk about them. So they ended up quitting because they kept asking and kept asking, like, can you just follow my life today? Can you follow the good things that I'm doing today? Macy Bookout even had Ryan fired. You guys don't remember this? Macy Bookout had Ryan fired because she was like, I don't want to be on the show that Ryan's going to be on, and I don't want to keep getting pushed to talk about Ryan. There was a whole big old stink about it, where she went to the higher ups and was like, I want y'all to follow my life with me and Taylor and our kids. And I don't want to focus on Ryan no more. And if he's even going to be on the show, I don't want to be on it. They let Ryan go because of that. So they are pushed to talk about this. There's so much that, like, now when I talk about people, like when I talk to like sources or even some of the people on the shows and they tell me these things, I'm like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. But you guys are getting attacked over these things. Why don't you comment on your page? Like, listen, they tell us to talk about this stuff. We're in a contract with them. We kind of are at their mercy. So we talk about it a little bit. It is our story. They want us to talk about it. Either way. So anyways, they're pushed to talk about it. It says here, I don't remember what was what I was on about, but we'll continue. It says, if you're any part of the adoption triad constellation or just wanting to educate yourself more about adoption, please follow this page. It's filled with such critical, helpful, and important information regarding adoption and adoptee experiences. Oh yeah, what I was on about is I've always believed that everybody has the right to share their life, their story, unless it impedes upon their child's mental health or it upsets their children. And so when I used to cover this topic, I would always say that, like, I think they should stop, talk about earlier in it, but probably just stop talking about any issues that they're having. Probably don't bring up Brandon and Teresa at all, just for the simple fact that it could be upsetting Carly. And I have seen comments from adoptees that they're like, if my birth parents were talking about my real, because, a lot of adoptees, they look at their adoptive parents as their real parents because that's who raised them. So they would be like, oh, if my birth parents were talking about my real parents, the way like Cate and Tyler have, like, I would never want to talk to them again. So I've seen those comments. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, they probably need to be quiet for that reason. But then I started hearing stuff behind the scenes. I started, and I'm like, oh my goodness. Just from what I know, the opinion that I have based off what I know, do I think it's possible that Brandon and Teresa cut communication and may not have told Carly that it was them and not Cate and Ty? Is it a possibility that Brandon and Teresa are like, we don't know, they're not asking to see you? Based off everything that I'm hearing now, that is a possibility, which now is maybe be like, okay, well, I kind of get it, because if I put a child up for adoption and I was promised to have annual visits for 18 years, and then I was cut off, and I had any inkling that the child may have been led to believe that I just quit checking on them and quit wanting those annual visits, what would I do? You know what I'm saying? Well, I would probably speak out. I would probably be like, not me. It wasn't me. You know what I'm saying? Um, so now, like, I can kind of see things, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for it because I know a lot of people seem to lean way more towards, uh, Brandon and Tree, and I get that. I get that those are her parents. They raised her, and your parents have every right to make the decisions they make. Parents should make decisions based off the best interest of the child. It is my understanding that might not necessarily be the case, and it may be more due to a fear that Carly wants to be more involved with Caitlin and Tyler, and that politics and stuff like that may play a big role as well. They are very different when it comes to politics, and Brandon and Teresa are very conservative. They're Christian conservative, and Kate and Ty are, they support, things that, from my understanding, the other party does not. So, anyways, let's continue. All right. All right, so it said, did you read where it said pictures and letters through adoption agency, not texting like a psycho? Tyler said, this is a perfect example of the confirmation bias I've mentioned. Yes, I did read that part. But do you know we were given their phone number and address to make contact and gift giving easier years later after this paperwork, which was something else that I was informed of. I was informed of this a couple weeks ago that Brandon and Teresa themselves gave Caitlin and Tyler their address and their phone number because Caitlin and Tyler were sending stuff to the adoption agency, and the adoption agency would, get it to them sometimes not on the specific time that it was in, like Carly's birthday. It might not show up for like a week or two later because, they're having to send to the adoption agency. And then whenever Dawn gets around to sending it. So I was given this information that Brandon and Teresa themselves provided Caitlin and Tyler with their information specifically so Caitlin and Tyler could call them instead of going through Dawn. So Caitlin and Tyler could send gifts to their house versus going through Dawn. And yeah, let's not argue with anybody. Everybody's entitled to their opinions, as long as everybody's opinions are respectful. If you have a different opinion and you see somebody in here with a different opinion, please don't call them dumb. Please don't say they're ignorant. Just allow everybody to have their opinion. Actually, this information did not come from Cate. Absolutely. Yes, I cannot say absolutely. Let me tell you something. As somebody that's done this, I make sure I verify my sources. And this did not come from Cate. As a matter of fact, Cate does not even know this person. Okay. So yeah, I've spoken to more than just one person. And this did not come from Cate. Have I spoken to Cate? Absolutely. Did this come from Cate? No. And it has been confirmed with things that if you were to see it, you'd be like, oh yeah, well, obviously they know them because it's stuff that nobody else has. So yeah, as somebody that does this, I would not say any of this. Exactly. Right. And two things can be true at once. Absolutely. Yeah, two things absolutely can be true at once. And I wasn't calling anyone out specifically. I just saw where somebody said don't be rude. So I'm like, everybody just, I know this is a topic that gets a lot of people riled up. It gets me riled up. There are certain topics to where I can be like, oh, and it can get me riled up. But I try to make sure everybody feels like they can come here and voice their opinion and not be attacked. And I don't want that. Okay, so let's continue. Well, I will tell you, Colby, after they were told to stop, they did stop sending gifts. So she's like, after they sent the blanket and everything, that's when they were told to stop sending it. And to my knowledge, they haven't sent anything else. Okay, so again, making assumptions based on limited information is never a smart idea because you always end up being wrong if you don't learn how to actually listen to understand instead of only listening to respond with your limited knowledge on the situation. And I mean, if I see somebody that says something and if I have some information that I can give you, then I'll do that. Right, exactly. Open adoption is not a promise of a relationship. It's a promise of access of information. Well, actually, I was about to say you're right, but that's not the case. So open adoption can be different in every case because so just like when Kate went to see Dawn for the very first time, that was filmed. Caitlin and Tyler went to see Dawn for the very first time. You can go back and watch it. I've watched it a million times at this point. And Dawn said, you're in the driver's seat of your adoption. It will look and feel the way you want it to look and feel. What do you want? And Caitlin said, well, I want pictures. I want to be able to send gifts. I want to be able to do this. And she was like, you can do that. Because really, it's the adoption agency itself, they don't tell you the truth. I mean, this one didn't. So in most states, open adoption, semi-open adoption is not legally enforceable in most states. There's where they live is one. So Caitlin and Tyler were told literally up until the even at the 30-day mark after they had the baby, to where they actually went and gave up their parental rights. Dawn and Brandon and Teresa was kind of at Kate and Tyler's mercy because they could have changed their mind at any point. They could have said, you know what, we're not giving this baby up for adoption. Sorry, see ya, sayonara. And they could have kept. So Brandon and Teresa were sitting there like, oh, hope she don't change her mind. Hope she don't change her mind. Hope she don't change her mind. And they could have. And they could have put anything they wanted to in that contract. They could have said, I've literally listened to so much now. And some people will say, well, my third cousin is adopted and it don't include annual visits. Well, if the parent would have requested that, it could have been put in the contract, but they still didn't have to abide by it, because if they don't live in a state where it's enforceable, it's not enforceable. You know what I'm saying? They do address this on the we're going to listen to a clip of their podcast where they do address this, like the co-parenting, where people say that. So we'll listen to a few clips in just a minute. I saw a question. So with an open adoption, can B&T change it to close without Kate and Ty's permission? Yes, because in the state they live in, open adoption, semi-open adoption are not legally enforceable, which is why I have such an issue with Dawn. Dawn had been an adoption counselor for years before Kate and Tyler walked into her office. She knew good and well that open adoption, semi-open adoption are not legally binding. She knew 100% that her telling Caitlin, if you want to open adoption, you can have it. If you want to request to see her once a year until she's 18, you can request that and they have to abide by that. She knew that was not true. It's not true. So, because what happens in the state they live in, Kate and Ty, they sign their rights away. They give up their rights. They relinquish their rights to Carly. And then Brandon and Teresa, they take on those rights. They become her legal parents, her legal guardian. And the moment they walk out of that courtroom, even if 30 minutes before they went in that courtroom, 30 minutes before they went in, they wrote up another contract with an open adoption where they get 2 visits a year, where once Carly turns 16, they can get her a cell phone and call directly to her. And, even if they would have put all of that in there and they would have agreed to that 30 minutes before they went before the judge to relinquish their rights, the second they walked out of that courtroom and that judge signed off on it, Brandon and Teresa didn't ever have to speak to Kate and Tyler again, and they would have been within their legal rights, because anything that Kate and Tyler signed at the adoption agency doesn't matter. It is not legally enforceable. And Dawn knew that, and she did not share that with 2 16-year-olds who trusted her. They trusted her that she would be honest with them. I mean, if you go into a bank and you're like, so I've heard about this bank. Yeah, they were told the agreement was legal. Absolutely. So like if you go into a bank, you move to a new state and you like, I got to find a bank. You go into a bank and you're like, so tell me about what y'all offer. And they start telling you, oh, we have a point system where if you slide your debit card as a credit for every $2 you spend, that's $1, whatever. If they start telling, and then like, yep, sign here if that's what you want. Your debit card don't cost any money. Once your debit card expires, you get a new one sent to you in the mail. Doesn't cost you any money. NSF fees, we don't have them. We don't have them. We don't know what that is. No NSF fees here. And then you sign up on this paper, and then you walk out, and you find out none of that mattered. None of that mattered. What you were just told by the employee of the bank, none of that can be upheld. It was all just to waste paper, essentially, because they do charge NSF fees. You do have to pay for a new, that's basically what it's like. And we would not be happy about that, right? I know if I hired somebody to do roof work for me and we agreed on something, if I'm like, when you are going to get a contractor for things, sometimes you can, take bids or whatever, and you can talk to different people and they'll be like, oh, this is my bid. I know where I live, the people, the town, they would take bids for the person that was going to mow the lawn in the city. So they would get with different people, and the people would submit their bids, and they would say, for me to mow, to keep the upkeep of the town, I will charge $10,000 a year. I don't know. And then the next bid for somebody different would be, I will charge $8,000 a bid. I will charge $12,000. So say you do that, and you go with the one that's going to cost you the least, and you sign the contract. Okay, you're going to come mow the lawn at the park once a month on Sunday. This is what we're going to pay you annually. That'll total up to what your bid was, and you do it once a month, blah, 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 and you sign off on that. Well, 16 years down the road, and the contract was supposed to be for 18 years. 16 years down the road, that he quits doing it. He just disappears and tells you, I'm not doing it no more. Well, you're going to be like, well, what the hell? We agreed that you would do it. I would have chose somebody else. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I would have known you weren't going to. So that's kind of how I look at it a little bit. Like, I'm kind of like, at 16 years old, if I signed something and I had an adult that literally worked at the agency that I thought was telling me the truth, am I going to be a little upset about it? Sure, absolutely. Because at 16 years old, not even at 16 years old, at 20 years old, if I hire you to do something for me and it's, we sign off on a couple year contract, and then a few years into it, you decide to switch it up and not do what we agree, I'm going to be like, well, what the heck, so this has been discussed. So they met the guardian ad litem about 30 minutes before they went in, and a lot of guardian ad litems have a pretty big workload where they may be there for a few cases in the same day. So to my understanding, the guardian ad litem did not explain things to them, that the adoption contract was not enforceable. It was like, hey, I'm here on your behalf because I kind of have to be. When we go up in front of the judge, they're going to ask questions. I'll speak on your behalf. Got it? Okay, good. Thank you. So to my knowledge, they were never aware they weren't aware for a long time that contract that they signed with Dawn was nothing. Okay. All right. So the reason they can't take them to court is because these two children still went to court and said, we're relinquishing our rights, giving them to this couple, Brandon and Teresa. That's it. And the judge said, are you sure? Yes. That means you will no longer be their parents. You understand that? Yep, that's what we know. Cate and Tyler's parents, Butch and April, stood up and objected, and they wanted to take Carly. And the judge was like, yeah, no, not going to happen. So because they did this in court and the judge signed off on it, that's the legal part of it. That's why Cate and Tyler don't have a leg to stand on when it comes to, taking them to court or anything. However, even if they could, they never would. Caitlin and Tyler have said, like, even if we could take them to court, like, we never would, because we wouldn't want any contingency between Brandon and Teresa. We would not want to put that on Carly, so they never would do that. All right, so let's continue. All right, so it says, as an adult adoptee, 42 years old, thank you for sharing your perspective with the world. Adoption is trauma, and it makes people uncomfortable to accept, but it doesn't make it less true. As a 50-year-old adoptee who has wondered all my life why I felt alone and unseen, even though I was surrounded by love, I so much appreciate your authentic perspectives and posts. Adoption always begins with loss. My heart is with you and Kate and Carly. As an adoptee, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for using this platform for something like this. So these are different people commenting on their post, which, like I've said before, I'm sure they get an influx of messages from people that agree with them, from adoptees that agree with them. Now, I know all adoptees don't agree with them because I've read the comments. I've read people that says I'm an adoptee and I don't agree with them. I think you should stop. But I do think they hear from a lot that probably do agree with them, which makes them again feel like, well, maybe we're doing the right thing. Adoptees are the ones who deserve to have a voice over everyone else involved because they are the most affected by the decision of an adoption. And that is what's important to me. Another thing, keep it up, Tyler. As an adult adopted person, you are educating these people, which needs to be done. Thank you for still using your platform to educate. I'm an adopted, and at the age of 30, I'm still learning so much about my feelings towards my own situation. I appreciate it so much. Transracial adoptee here. I didn't know that was a term. Thank you for educating me on that. Adoptee here. Keep speaking your truth. Change the public's narrative about adoption. It's not the rainbows and butterflies they want us to believe it is. Love you both. They are who I'll continue to advocate for. All right. So we're going to listen to some of the clips from their podcast. Like I said, it was an interesting podcast. I think first we're going to listen to the clip where they address the 5-year thing. All right. At this point, Caitlin and Tyler do not text. They do not call. They don't send gifts. The only thing they do is speak publicly about certain things. So at this point, I've seen a lot of people say, like, Caitlin and Tyler need to get a TRO. Let me tell you something, getting a TRO, it's really difficult. I mean, I know for me, like, I had to prove that, like, my life was threatened. Like, what? I had literally, when I tried to get a TRO at one point, I called and they're like, well, did he threaten you? And I'm like, I mean, he's harassing the heck out of me. And they're like, well, that doesn't matter. He has to threaten you with bodily harm. And I'm like, well, that makes a lot of sense. You know, by the time he threatens and he gets over here and he does it, then I don't need one. I'm already beat up, you know. I mean, it was by like a crazy ex-stalker boyfriend. Anyways. But I will also say freedom of speech, you can do that. You know, if Brayden and Teresa were trying to get a TRO just because Kate and Tyler are speaking, I don't think that would work because, you know, they could argue freedom of speech. Like we're talking about, this is also their story as well. While a lot of people might not like it and a lot of people may think you're probably hurting Carly with this, it doesn't change the fact that it's still their, you know, their right to speak, you know, if that makes sense. Anyways, let's listen.
A lot of it's false. A lot of it's wrong.
Yeah.
So like the whole thing about it being 5 years, there has been the finalized paperwork for our open adoption agreement, which we have, which I don't know where it's at, but people are confused saying that the adoption was only for 5 years and that me and you should be grateful for anything above and beyond that.
I know, of course.
And
And shut up to be grateful.
And that is my thing, is like, that is false. The paperwork that you're getting the information off of was from a not finalized form
And that was like
of our adoption agreement when Dawn gave us that at the table of that restaurant.
yeah, and that was from like way in the beginning of us making the adoption plan.
Yeah, so and the whole 5 years thing was only about a picture that I wanted on her birthday, specifically by herself for the first 5 years, so that way.
Which you never got, by the way.
Well, we got pictures. It just wasn't.
Not like that though.
Not the way it's fine. I never argued about it. I was
No.
like, whatever. I never complained because I was like, listen, I'm still getting pictures. I was happy about it.
No, I get it.
But the information that they're going off of, that little clause in that piece of paper that they're zooming in from a TV show, is not the finalized open adoption agreement. We had the finalized open adoption agreement.
Yeah, it's in my email.
And it clearly states visits up until 18.
Once a year.
Once a year. Annual. ANNUAL. Annual visits. That is one visit per year until she's 18.
Right.
All of our signatures are on it. It's all in black and white. It's all there.
Yep.
But God forbid you keep going on your little screenshot of a TV show from 10 years ago and zooming in on the little clause on adoption paperwork that wasn't the final form.
Right. No, it wasn't.
So you're making these TikToks and these damaging accusations,
and I think it
based off of false information.
Well, and it comes back to people not fully being educated about adoption and open adoption, because like we were told this whole time and this whole journey when we were making this decision for her was, if you ever change your mind about openness or whatever during this, Dawn used to always say, we can pull out the big eraser, we can erase it, and we can make it to however you feel and however you want it.
Right.
So yes, after she was born and we held her and saw her, of course we thought to ourselves, oh hell no, this is going to be really hard. I love her. I want to see her. I don't want to have any what ifs. I want to know what she's doing and what does she look like and what is she into. And so we told Dawn, no. We want to switch it to open.
And we did.
Yeah.
And I honestly I want everyone to understand that is okay. Birth mothers are allowed to change their mind once that baby comes into the world, because everything before the whole 9 months of being pregnant is all speculation, wondering, not knowing what it's going to be like and how you're going to feel.
Yeah.
And so I think people don't understand that during the whole adoption process, they always say, well, once the baby's born, things may be different. And they always said you could change your mind.
Yeah.
And I believe that every woman has the right to change her mind, especially when it comes to being a mother for the rest of your life or not being a mother. That's a huge lifelong altering decision. So I think people don't understand that it's also not legally binding. You think this open adoption agreement is legally binding? It is not.
Well, no, but I know like in some states, like California, right? You can enforce it and stuff like that too. But yeah, a lot of people, they don't. But I think another misconception, which I think is funny that I'm seeing a lot lately, and I know like you mentioned it too.
I'm going to comment, and this is just my assumption is I think they actually may be a little bothered since they got their full file. I think once Cate and Tyler got their full file, but Dawn is their only connection to Carly at this point, and Brandon and Teresa. And so I think they'll probably continue to talk to her, but because, like Caitlin said, someone said, does Dawn know why they cut y'all off? And she said, well, she may know why they cut us off, but Dawn was instructed that she cannot talk to us about Carly. Teresa told Dawn, you're not allowed to discuss Carly with Caitlin and Tyler anymore. I do not give you permission for that. Which honestly, I'm like, can't nobody really give you permission? I mean, is that even legal? I mean, like my kids, okay? I have 6 kids. If I were to tell their grandmother, you don't, okay, like if I were to tell their grandmother, my 2 older kids, right? We don't have, I have 2 older kids, a 20-year-old, about to be 20-year-old, and a 17-year-old that have a different dad. If I were to tell my mom, you are not allowed to talk to their dad about my kids anymore. No, I don't care if he contacts you and he wants to know about them. You tell him nothing. You're not allowed. I mean, I guess I could say that, but I couldn't really enforce that. I couldn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, but Dawn has listened. Dawn has said, like, okay, I won't. So, yeah, maybe her being an adoption counselor and maybe she has to listen. I'm not sure. I wouldn't think that that's even possible, but whatever. What's the harm in knowing updates? What is the real problem? Because it doesn't add up. I don't know. Why do they respect Dawn so much? Yeah, I know. Because for a long time, I've been like, Dawn did them so shady. Dawn, in my opinion, Dawn is the reason it is the way that this is. Okay. Cate and Tyler's whole spiel all these years has been educate yourself on adoption, and yet here they are claiming. I think that's why that's their spiel. I think that's why they are so gung-ho on, if you are going to go the route of adoption, please educate yourself, because we weren't. And look what happened to us. You don't want to be like us. You don't want to be the way we were. You know what I'm saying? I think that's why they are so big on doing this, because they weren't educated, and now they're in a position to where they put their child up for adoption to a family that really wanted to close adoption to begin with. Brandon and Teresa did not even want an open adoption, and they did not find out that the couple they were meeting wanted a semi-open adoption until they already flew in to meet them. They had flown. Dawn gave Brandon and Teresa's profile to Caitlin and Tyler. So when Caitlin and Tyler went in to Dawn, and Dawn said, well, what do you want? Caitlin and Tyler told them what they want. We want a Christian couple. We want a couple that's dedicated to each other. We want a couple that doesn't plan on having any more children, or that doesn't have any more children. They were specific that they didn't, or actually what they were specific to was they wanted a couple that were had fertility issues and couldn't have their own child. That's what they wanted. And Caitlin explained why. She said the reason they wanted a couple that could not have their own baby is because they did not want to place Carly with a couple and then that couple have their own baby and they love their biological child more than they love Carly, and there'd be a difference. So they're like, we want a couple that can't have their own baby. We want a couple that's Christians. We want a couple that financially is very well, which all of this fit Brandon and Teresa perfectly. The only thing is Brandon and Teresa wanted a closed adoption. They didn't want an open adoption. They didn't want a semi-open adoption. Brandon and Teresa had been with the adoption agency for a while, from what I was told, because they wanted a closed adoption and they wanted to adopt from a younger unmarried couple. That's what Brandon and Teresa wanted. Brandon and Teresa wanted to adopt from a young unmarried couple. These were specifics that was talked about. Cate and Tyler wanted this. Brandon and Teresa wanted this. So Dawn giving Caitlin and Tyler Brandon and Teresa's profile should have never happened, in my opinion, at all. Because while some things matched, the as far as like Caitlin and Tyler wanted semi at the moment, and Brandon and Teresa were very like closed adoption. So she set them up, and then when Brandon and Teresa fly in before the first meeting, she's like, oh, by the way, they want a semi-open adoption, just so you know. Well, then they go into the meeting and, they like them. And they're like, okay, well, we guess we can do semi-open adoption. We guess we're okay with that. But that's never what they wanted. Well, then after Caitlin had Carly, Caitlin said, we want an open adoption. And they called Dawn. They told Dawn. They're like, we want to change it to an open adoption. Like having Carly, seeing her, we want an open adoption. Do you think Brandon and Teresa will be fine with that? And she was like, let me call them and tell them. She got in touch with Brandon and Teresa, told them, calls Caitlin back and says, yeah, they're fine with it. So, however, I don't know if they ever really were like fully, if that was ever what they really wanted, Yeah, so I definitely think that Dawn misled them. All right, so let's listen to, all right, we're going to listen to Tyler talk about boundaries as well. Because this is one that I wish I could get Caitlin on for an interview. I would love to interview Caitlin. I literally, in my notebook, I have a list of questions I would ask her that has to do with like, was your mom drunk at the last meeting? Like, was she legit drunk or was she just drinking? Because I remember back when it happened, it was Caitlin got mad at her mom for drinking. But then now I read that her mom was drunk. And I'm like, was she drunk or was she drinking? Either way, it's an issue. Like, if you're there for an annual visit and you're drinking, like, you shouldn't be drinking. You have a problem with alcohol. You shouldn't be drinking. But was she drunk? Yeah, well, they did not know how religious or how conservative exactly. But yes, they knew they were Christian conservative because they met. Okay, so let me see. Teresa was a teacher at a private Christian school, and they met at church or something like that, or like a Bible or something. So, they kind of had an idea. Yes, thank you. Please help Elle get to 100K. Thank you. Okay, she didn't give the vibe that she was drunk, and that was Caitlin's boundary. But everyone, okay, see, that's what I thought. I thought the reason it was an issue was because Caitlin had a strict boundary with her mom. You don't drink around me at all. You do not drink around me. Like, that triggers me, so you're not allowed to drink around me. I think when they went to dinner, though, and her mom had a drink, I think that upset her. And that's what caused problems. So after the meeting and after they got back home, she messaged her mom, was like, I don't appreciate you drinking. Well, then things blew up. Nicholas went live on, YouTube, going off on Caitlin. And then it was, oh, she was drunk. And I'm like, I thought it was just she drank. And that was like, she broke one of the boundaries. So that was my, yes. So, okay. I have to verify this. I probably shouldn't say it until I verify it, but I heard that MTV actually went to the adoption agency and was like, we're looking for a couple that's thinking about adoption. And that Dawn linked them with Caitlin and Tyler. I'm going to verify that. But I did hear that. Don't run with that. But I did hear that Caitlin and Tyler had already thought about adoption, contacted the agency, whatever. It looks like it's BNT's tape they sent to the agency. Yes, BNT did send a tape to the agency. Anyways, let's continue listening because we're already at an hour. I'm so sorry, guys.
Guarantee you're going to find something, multiple things that just don't sit right with you.
And I also people forget. Do they forget like we were literally growing up on television? Who doesn't make mistakes in their young years?
And like I think honestly, a lot of it, the mistakes were like just from being naive. Like honestly, I think back about
learning
a lot of the stuff that has to do with the very first time that we got in trouble with Brandon and Teresa about posting the thing about Carly. The very first boundary that I ever broke, the first and last one, in my opinion, was that one picture that I posted on that slideshow after they went on the magazine cover and after they did the adoption
so after they did the front of the magazine cover and after they did the Dr. Drew show thing, that's when you're talking about when you made the collage of all of the pictures of Carly throughout the years. You posted it on your private Facebook.
No, it was on the fan page.
Oh, was it on the
fan page? Yeah, it was on the fan page. I don't know how many. I mean, it's still back then it was like Instagram wasn't really a thing, so it was like I think Facebook fan pages are more like popular or something back then. But yeah, I was on that fan page and I did it without even thinking because all that stuff happened. Dr. Drew, Magazine Life, whole magazine cover. And I think what's interesting is they play this clip that was played on TV where we already got in trouble off camera. We already got called. We already got in trouble. So when we had the conversation on camera about me posting that video, it was past tense. It already happened. So you're super emotional. You're pregnant and you're talking to me, telling me, they're going to find out this is bad. You know what I mean? And it comes across very like, I'm very just like, screw everybody. I'm doing it. And to be honest with you, that was true when it first happened. And that's one example where I feel young and naive and I'm just being arrogant. And I take full accountability for being arrogant and just annoyed and feeling inferior and just all those things. And like, that's an honest mistake. And I think.
Thank you so much, Carly, for the super sticker. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Girl, you skinny. Count your blessings. Yeah. Let me tell you, y'all send me super. I look at your pictures. I'm like, I always look at your pictures. See, that's what I'm trying to achieve at the gym, but it just don't happen. I'm gonna have to get on Ozempic.
People forget that we actually, fixed that.
I'm just kidding.
Mistake, quote unquote, when we went and had the conversation with them and we talked about it all and we got a lot of that conversation.
From then on further, I would ask for permission of what pictures I could post.
And they said we could post the back of her head as long as you can't see her face.
Yes.
And so that's what we did. We never posted another pic that was not approved by them.
And it was very rare that I ever even after fact posted pictures of her. It was like one set.
Okay, so I've seen that a lot too. And this is just if we're going off what they're saying. Because he's saying, yes, we got in trouble. I posted a picture of Carly after like the Dr. Drew thing came out after they were on the front of a magazine. So like I didn't know that it would be an issue. I posted the picture, got in trouble. And yes, at the moment I got irritated because I was like, well, dang, y'all just did Dr. Drew. Dang, y'all were just on the front page of a magazine. So he's like, being a young age, I didn't understand it. Like why, it was an issue. But he, come to like, okay, I might not understand it. And he was bad in the moment, but once he calmed down, he was like, still not understand it, but I'm going to respect their wishes and I'm not going to post anymore. So they've said every photo that they've posted since then has been with the approval of Brandon and Teresa. It's been the back of her head.
visits I would, but it would always be the back of her head where you can't, because I followed their boundaries of not showing her face. And I completely understood that. And I feel like they in turn gave me a little piece of like, oh, that makes me feel good because I can share her a little bit with the world.
Right.
But and so yeah, I feel like we came to a very good understanding with that.
Yeah.
I've never tried lemon balm water. I'll have to look into that. I've never tried that. Jamie, this actually is exactly what Caitlin said. I imagine a part of CNT choosing conservative BNT may have had to do with them wanting the opposite of what they had growing up. So yeah, when Caitlin and Tyler were 16 years old, they did not really have any political beliefs. You know what I'm saying? Like they were too young. They were not raised by parents that probably didn't cared about the government or politics or anything like that. So they did not really have any, anything to go off of, or they didn't know anything about whatever. But they grew up with parents that were, like Tyler says, crackheads. Tyler says that, like our parents were crackheads. So he said the reason they chose a Christian conservative family is because they wanted the exact opposite of what they had. Now, as they grew up and they started forming their own political beliefs, it is definitely different than Brandon and Teresa's. And it's my understanding that has a lot to do with the shutdown of visitations.
I think that's when they mentioned to us about saying we don't want to be on camera anymore, and we were like, that's fine. And the one boundary that they said was, we don't want you repeating our conversations verbatim.
Yeah, word for word.
Summarization was fine, but don't repeat what we say word for word. We said, okay, fine. They never said, stop talking about Carly, stop talking about the adoption, stop all that stuff. Keep our names out of your mouth, keep our, that never happened. They literally just said, don't post our word for word conversations or repeat the word for word conversations on camera. We didn't.
No.
And so I feel like when people talk about these boundaries that we've supposedly broken with them, I have a hard time figuring out where they are, because
I'm like,
what I think is interesting too is that you are literally telling me what boundaries I was given, as if like it's almost like, okay, who makes a boundary? The person, right? And then who delivers that boundary? The person delivers it to me, not you. So you're telling me what the boundaries were? That's insane, because you didn't see our private conversations that we had off camera, not even in public at all, just me and you and Bray and Teresa talking. So
yeah, it's true. And it's always been private. So that's why it's funny, because it's almost, a good response to people when they say like, oh, you've broken boundaries. Be like, oh, so when did Bray and Teresa tell you our boundaries?
Thank you. When did they release that information to you? Because you're going off of what you assume.
Right. Assumptions.
And that's dangerous. And that's kind of why I feel like with this podcast, we can get into certain stuff. We can, shine some more light, give some more context, because I do believe context is super important.
No,
especially when you're taking old clips that are edited and down and putting them all together to fit your narrative or whatever it is you're trying to prove. So it's like, I think it's interesting when people are telling me what the boundaries are from a private conversation that I had with Bray and Teresa
that we've never even shared.
That we've never shared. Yeah. So it's like, and also about communication. Like, you don't know how often we texted on a daily basis. You're assuming that we didn't talk a lot, or you're assuming that we message every 2 months, or you're assuming if it was me, I would only message maybe once, twice a year. Well, you don't know the normalcy of our communication. You don't know.
No, you're not in my life.
Exactly. So how can you?
And so that's why I think, though, too, for me, I think it's like, I don't have a problem with addressing certain things, but when you address things and people still don't understand or don't believe you, that's when I'm like, you know what? Fine. I said my truth, and I'm not going to keep going back and addressing the same issue over and over and over again. And that's why I said, at the end of the day, I sleep great.
Yeah. Listen,
because I know my truth.
4 + 4 = 10 for you.
Right.
Fine. Like, that's what I'm at in my life.
4
I'm like,
+
whatever,
4
dude.
= 8 for me. So,
yeah. So,
Okay, so that's what we're going to listen to, but I would suggest listening to the podcast. I think it makes a lot of sense, and it gives a little bit more insight to the situation, because, I feel like I don't think about these things until I hear it, and then I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm sure, because I was also one of the people that was like, the contract says you're to send gifts to the agency, and the agency will get them to Brandon and Teresa. But here we are knowing that you were sending them to their house. So you broke that boundary. And then we find out that when Carly was very little is when Brandon and Teresa gave them permission to do that. That, yes, in the contract it stated these things, but Brandon and Teresa made changes to that contract with things that they become more comfortable with. And so then when you find out, wait a minute, Cate and Ty didn't go on, Truth Finder and find Brandon and Teresa's address and start sending gifts. They found it because Brandon and Teresa gave it to them and was like, you know what? Rather than sending gifts through Dawn, or rather than us sending pictures through Dawn, here's our information. Here's our phone number. Here's our address. We'll what's y'all's address? So pictures that we need to send y'all, rather than sending them to Dawn, we can send them to y'all. So that was something that they did when Carly was still little. Those were changes that was made when Carly was still little, but we were not privy to, right? So as I hear more, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes a little bit more sense. And I will say, yeah, a lot of people, do not side with Brandon and with Caitlin and Tyler. And I have literally seen comments about me on other people's pages where people's like, I quit following Elle Bee because she defends Caitlin and Tyler. And I'm like, I don't feel like I've like exactly defended them. I've just always tried to see like what makes sense to me. Putting myself in their shoes at 16, would I have trusted Dawn? Absolutely. But how would I have felt if Dawn misled me? And I thought, I'm going to put this baby up for adoption because I can't afford to take care of this baby. But like I've said this before on my channel, I got pregnant at 17, but I had the support of my mom. But say I didn't, and I would have went into an adoption agency, and she would have said, oh, you know what? It's going to be the way that you want it to be. If you want to see your child once a year, twice a year, you can do that. If you want to send pictures, you can do that. If you want to receive pictures, you can do that. If you want to send gifts, you can do that. Versus if I would have been told, listen, you can ask for all that, but at the end of the day, once you relinquish those parental rights, they don't have to do anything. They can walk away with the baby that you just gave them and never speak to you again, and they would be well within their rights. I would say, well, yeah, never mind. Never mind. Adoption is definitely not for me. You know what I'm saying? And if Caitlin and Tyler would have been properly informed by the person that has a duty to properly inform them, she has a moral obligation to, I wouldn't even think a legal obligation, to properly inform people about the reality of adoption, but she did not. And back in 2009, adoptions would run you anywhere from $25,000 to $40,000. I think, let me see. Tyler has said before how much the specific agency that they used, how much it made last year. It was like billions of dollars. It was ridiculous. Yes, you're in the driver's seat of your adoption. That's what they were told. That was a lie. We saw Dawn lie to them. But if I would have been 16 years old and I would have been told that, well, I might would have went through with it if that was even something I was looking at. But if I would have been told the truth, I would have never even considered it. And then people's like, well, your mom tried to tell you, your mom and Butch tried to talk you out of it. And they addressed this on their podcast as well. They're like, so y'all want us to listen to two crackheads? Y'all want us to listen to two crackheads who literally, like, yeah, maybe this was the one time that they were right, but we couldn't read into the future. We didn't, we're here with this couple who is agreeing to all these things that we want. Doesn't seem to be a problem. They're making us feel like we're extended family almost, Tina says B&T took advantage of two 16-year-olds. They're trauma bonded in some ways with Dawn. I think you're right. Yeah. They consistently say on TV, I gave you Carly, so we should be able to say and do what we want. It's disrespectful because they gave her away at the end of the day. They feel entitled about Carly. Let me read that again. I think legally they can say whatever they want. Does it make it right? No. Can they do whatever they want? They really can't do whatever they want. They can say they can do whatever they want, but they can't because here they are now unable to do what they want. They want to be able to see her and they can't. I think sometimes they get in their feelings, and I think about myself. If that would have happened to me, and I got my annual visits for so many years, for 13 years, and then it stopped, and I had other children that knew this child that developed a little bit of a bond with this child as well, would I be hurt? Yes. If I was on a reality TV show about my adoption, would I talk about it? Probably, so I don't know. Yeah. I feel like Brandon and Teresa and the agency love bombed them many years to manipulate them to keep them complicit. And now that they're not complicit, this is what we're seeing all of this now. People need to remember everyone was an adult in this transaction except Caitlin and Tyler. They were manipulated children. I would be too, honestly, as a human. Come on now, wouldn't you be upset to have to be cut off like that? I mean, I think anybody in the world, if they signed a contract to have something done to their house and the contractor, and you said, my wishes are X, Y, and Z, and the contractor said, no problem, and agreed to it and signed that contract, but then, they didn't do it. And it's like, well, sorry, I think anybody would be upset, and even more so if you did it at 16 years old. So I will say I used to be like, definitely lean more towards like Brandon and Teresa and more towards Caitlin and Tyler need to be quiet. Did I always feel like they were taken advantage of? Yes. I felt like Dawn big time took advantage of them. But I still felt like, well, Brandon and Teresa are her parents. And just at the slight possibility that this is bothering Carly, they need to quit. Now that I have more information and some inside information as to how Carly is feeling, I lean a little bit, different. And honestly, like listening to them explain more things and explain why they were sending gifts, and then it kind of makes sense. And yeah, I've never agreed with the comment that April and Butch tried to tell them, because I'm like, even at 16 years old, they knew better than to like listen to April and Butch. And like Tyler said, at the time that all of this was happening, like, they were on the verge of being evicted again. Butch and April were both crack addicts. They were like in addiction. They were not even trying to be sober. They were both in addiction, alcoholics, crack addicts. Caitlin's house was riddled with fleas. So, and they did talk about how this wasn't seen on the show, that there was a point where they decided to keep Carly, that they decided they were going to parent her. And Tyler was like, I remember I had about 50 bucks and I was going to go to the Salvation Army, and I was going to get some things, anything that I could get with 50 bucks, and Caitlin said that her grandmother started sending her things for the baby. But then one day at home with her mom, her and April got into it, and April threw it up in her face. Well, who do you think is going to help take care of your baby? Who do you think is going to buy your baby diapers? Who do you think is going to do this for your baby because you can't do it? And she said that's when it hit her again. Like, if I bring this child here, I'm going to have this happen. I'm going to have this thrown up in my face for the rest of my life, And she was like, it kind of dawned on me, like, this would be happening. This is where the baby would be. And she was like, I just thought I could give her so much better than that. I don't know. What about Ty's mom's house? Why didn't Ty's mom sign papers? Why couldn't they live with her? I've wondered that as well. And they've never really touched on that. So I'm not really sure. I agree. I definitely don't think OnlyFans is a good choice, but ghosting Kate and Tyler is damaging to Carly. If they were old enough to do the deed, why would they not be old enough to face Well, because let me tell you, I know 12-year-olds has gotten pregnant because, I mean, at the age that I started doing the deed, at 17 years old, I got pregnant, and I was not really. Did I face the consequences? Yeah, head on. Did I tend to my kid? Absolutely. But I absolutely was not prepared for it. It was very difficult for me. And I went through times where mentally I was not okay, but I did what I needed to do. But at the time that I first did it, was I prepared? No, because when you're, like I said, I know a girl in 8th grade, she got pregnant because her mom was irresponsible and was not a good parent, and let her 12-year-old daughter date a 19-year-old, and the 19-year-old moved in with them, and bam, she got pregnant. At 12 years old, you're not mature. You're not thinking. I don't subscribe to if you're old enough to do the deed, you're old enough to raise a baby. I don't subscribe to that at all. My mom got pregnant at a young age, and while, yes, she buckled down and she did it, she raised us. It was really difficult for her, and she had the support of her parents. not everybody has that, you know. Yeah, they both agreed on the podcast. They probably would not be together if they had Carly. I think you mean I wasn't ready in my 20s, especially with a special needs child. It's hard being a parent no matter what. Yes. It's not ghosting if they told them the answer. They just don't like the answer. Yeah, I don't know. Did they ever give them like a specific answer? I think they just said, we don't like what you said about us, the way that you spoke about us. So we're cutting communication. So yeah, I think you're right. I think they gave them an answer. We don't like how you've spoken about us. And it was after Caitlin made the post that it doesn't feel like love. And do I think she should have did that? Probably not. Because for every action, there's a reaction and there could be consequences. And Caitlin and Tyler have always been at the mercy of Brandon and Teresa. So posting something publicly about not feeling like Brandon and Teresa are treating them right, while that may be the way that she feels, she probably should have put it in a journal and not on social media, for sure. Because the reaction to that, and honestly, when I'm thinking about that, like, okay, if I had a child that I had adopted and her mom posted something on social media, would I cut off all communication? Maybe for a minute. Would be like, you know what? I don't want to talk to you right now. But I would probably do it like this. I don't want to talk to you right now because you hurt my feelings with what you posted. I don't like going public with stuff. I don't like my drama to be blasted to the masses on Facebook. So I'm in my feelings right now and I just don't want to talk to you. When I'm okay, I'll reach out. Am I going to cut off communication? It's like my older kid's dad. There's been times him and his little new girlfriends have made posts, but do I cut him off completely from my kids? No, I'm not going to do that. Because, well, my kids know that's their dad. And even though he ain't around that often, they know that's, they're like, well, and I know they want to see him. So I don't know. Yeah. They do have all the power. It has to be upsetting. Tyler's mom's name is Kim. Yeah, I think it's Kim. Kids don't understand consequences. Oh my gosh, they do not understand consequences to their actions. This is terrible for everyone involved, but the decision cutting them off affects Carly the most. Words aren't a good reason to cut off a birth parent. We're never going to always agree on everything as adults, but at the end of the day, Carly is the one that matters. Her opinion matters. And if she's upset by this, that is a really sad thing. I can tell you that, I've been told that she's devastated by it. I mean, it's not what she wants. And Brandon and Teresa, they do still allow their son to have something to do with his bio family. And there have been visits with their son's bio family since Brandon and Teresa have cut Caitlin and Tyler off. And just think about this. If you want to see your bio family and you have a brother that you are going with him, you get up, you load him in the car with your parents and your brother, and you go visit your brother's bio parents, knowing I don't get to visit my bio parents when you want to, knowing that you want to. You know what I'm saying? They didn't ghost them. They have literally said that T told Caitlin that they're hurtful in the ways they speak to them. Yeah, I don't know if I said they ghosted them. Did I? They may have said that. I don't think I said that. Therefore, they want no more contact. Why do I believe Caitlin and Tyler's versions of events so easily? Well, honestly, to be quite honest, some things just kind of made sense to me. Like, well, 16 years have passed. We're not there for everything. Would I believe that? Well, some things I've gotten verified through another source. Okay, so some things I was told directly from a source that Caitlin and Tyler did not tell me, like Carly being upset by this, like Carly being devastated by this, like this not being what Carly wanted. Uh, like, what else? There's several things that I know that, and then things that I know from Caitlin and Tyler because they put it out publicly. Because they're saying, listen, the reason we know their address to send gifts is because they gave it to us not long after they had Carly, because it made things easier for everybody. So I'm like, well, that makes a lot of sense. Like, if I put my child up for adoption and they're like, send everything here and send we got to send there, but things are coming late, I might too would be like, you know what? Here's my address. Just send it here to her. So that would make sense for me. Yeah, there's more to the story. We have to wait for Carly to speak out. Yeah, anyone usually wouldn't find that to be a good idea around children. We can all pretend that's worked just fine because it's politically correct to say so, but it's common sense about I'm confused, Sammy Pam. I feel like I'm missing something there. Every adoptee I've ever known struggled until they reached out and located their bio parents facility. And two, because I have been listening to a lot of like adoptees talk. I've been listening to a lot of adoptees talk about feeling like they didn't belong and like there's something called adoptee mirroring or mirroring where like growing up and never hearing like, oh, you get that from your mom, you get that from your dad, how that can affect you. But like your siblings will hear that, or you'll hear that with like family members, but you never hear it. You know what I'm saying? How that affects them. So listening to like adoptees speak out has also made me kind of think like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. Yeah, Vicky. People don't have to just say the right thing all the time because society now says you can't tell the truth or common sense. These model brothers get a bully for it. Um, yeah, I don't. If I do have somebody that I'm talking to, if they tell me I can't tell, then I don't tell. But I do verify my sources. Uh, we don't need a question, so it's knowing you since I've been on the show. Thank you. Yes, I definitely try to. Anyways, you guys, we've been going for over an hour, and I feel like people that watch on replay, they're gonna be like, "Oh my God, this girl don't shut up." And I probably am gonna lose a few people over having. And here's the thing. Yes, Brandon and Teresa are her parents. They are the ones that raised her, and they deserve all the respect for that. Um, Hearing what I'm hearing that they're cutting off not for any reason that's actually of the best interest of Carly, but more so over like political beliefs. To me, I don't agree with that. Hearing that Carly is upset about this, that bothers me. Also knowing that there could be a possibility that Carly is being led to believe that Kate and Ty just kind of stopped. It also makes me think, well, God, I'm glad Caitlin and Tyler have done this, so the proof will be there. I do think the best thing could have always been, and Caitlin was told by other adoptees when she was cut off. Caitlin talked to some of her friends that are adoptees and was like, "What do I do?" She also talked to Dawn about, "What do I do? Like, I've been cut off. What do I do?" They're not allowing visits, and she was told, and she's talked about this, she was told by other adoptees as well as Dawn to just keep messaging, just message, send pictures, update about Carly. That way, if they throw the blame on you, you can show that evidence to wait, no, it wasn't us. We continue reaching out. We continue sending pictures of us and asking about you. It wasn't us. So she's like, we've done so many things after talking to Dawn or other adoptees. You know, I love the long lives, but you know, but I feel like I feel like other people may not. um, what are we doing? But they don't think Taylor and Kate make good decisions. I don't understand how letters, pictures, and minimum correspondence that they've had is now crossing a line for them, and they want to cut off contact. It does not make sense. It seems like a bigger issue. Thank you, Elle. I appreciate your perspective and opinions. You are able to shape your views around many things, including your personal experience as a teen mom and having a mother-in-law who's former CPS, etc. Yes, I can bet almost anything that if Carly is really upset as soon as she turns 18, well, that's something else I do want to talk about. As soon as she turns 18, she will be right next to Cate and Tyler on TV, I bet you. So something that I've also learned is that even adoptees that really want to be in their bio parents' lives do not do it right when they turn 18 because they're scared of upsetting their parents, their adoptive parents, which I don't say that to be disrespectful. Uh, I can get that. It's because I can't even say everything. It's because it's so I can't say anything. Like maybe one day if it comes out, then you'll understand. But yeah, I get that though. Yeah, that's like the fog. So a lot of people say like, oh, well, if she wants to be with you when she gets 18, she'll come. But a lot of adoptees later on, like have said, I wanted my parents, but like I wanted to find my bio parents. I wanted to be a part of my bio parents' lives. Like the moment I turned 18, but I was scared. I was scared of upsetting my parents that raised me, the parents that I love very much. So I didn't do it until I was 25. There's so many stories of kids, well, not kids, adoptees that did not seek their bio family until they were like years later, just because they did not want to upset their parents that raised them. I don't know if I read your email, Lacey. I'll have to check. I have been so busy the past few days with going through TikTok stuff, and I'm not going to be here tomorrow. So I'll be. Oh my goodness! I'm so glad I got it. Okay, so I'm going to be live Sunday at 2 p.m. Central Time on Grace Report's channel. So I'm going to make posts about it everywhere. This Sunday at 2 p.m. Central Time, me and Grace Report will be live on her channel talking about like Amber and all the teen mom drama. So make sure if you're not subscribed to Grace, you subscribe to her. And then eventually I'll probably have Grace on my channel as well. Anyways, you guys, where's Granny's watch? I don't know. If you ever visit episodes, I don't know. I can understand them not knowing the media attention will continue. Yeah, I could. Yeah, absolutely. Anyways, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and cut it off because Teen Mom is on and I got to go watch that and I got to go get clips of that. It's supposed to be the episode where Gary and Christina sit down with an attorney. So this is going to be an interesting one. We will definitely talk about that Sunday with Grace Report on Grace Report and then probably Monday as well. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Regardless, let's be realistic here because there's so much that is unsaid and hurt. True story. Yeah. Anyways, I appreciate you guys all so much for hanging out with me. I thank you for the super chat, super stickers, and just everybody in the chat. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you guys listening to me because I do know that not a lot of people agree with what I'm saying. And like I said, I know I've lost subscribers over it. I've seen the comments of people saying they unsubscribed to me but I'm like, I feel like I'm always respectful with the way that I do say things. And I don't ever feel like I've been like super so for Cate and Tyler. I've just been like kind of understanding of all sides, I feel like. Yes, Grace said she received the sweetest email, or an email from a sweet, what'd she say? She received an email from a sweet supporter that requested that we do a live together. So it must have been you. Anyways, you guys, thumbs up this video on the way out. If you have anything that you disagree with me on and you want to bring it up, leave it in the comments tomorrow when I'm out. I'll try to read the comments and I'll try to respond to it. But thank you, everybody, for hanging out with me. And if I was able to give you a new perspective, let me know if you want to say something to me that you think that I'm not thinking of. I will definitely leave it in the comment section. I'll definitely, read it and think about that or even respond to it. So yeah, I hope everybody has a great weekend and I'll see you guys Sunday over on Grace Reports channel. Bye, guys.